Hi guys, welcome back to the Location 1980 Art Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Fortune, my co-host, Eric Ringman, and our special guest of the evening, Nancy Anderson and Ruth Geller. Ladies, we've been friends for years. You're friends, you're artists, obviously. Worked in a lot of professional capacities, a lot of art shows, different backgrounds, and we'd like to remind our audience we're doing a compressed version. We're not going to rush these ladies out of here, but this is all leading up to our upcoming show, Feminine Undertones, which is next week. Yes, and indeed. I think you're the fifth and sixth guests in 6 days or something like that. So we've really been having a lot of content, a lot of conversations.
Yeah, a little podcast marathon leading up to the show, which is the 29th of June.
So with that being said, welcome to the show, Ruth and Nancy. Like I said, we've been friends for years. I think you just met Eric, or
yes, I just
briefly.
met Eric.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, nice meeting you.
Different shows, yeah.
I'll start with you, Nancy, because I think I may have known you the whole time I've been here at 1980. Did we meet down at the street at Mark's? Was there another studio?
Yes, I used to come down the street a few doors and that was the live painting, and then I think you came down, but he was decided he's not doing it anymore at some point, and then you picked it up.
Yeah, I think Terrell kind of dropped it in my lap, and when he did, it was great because as brief as it was me being there, you guys had already been quite some time.
Yes.
I think you and Alice Leggett and Phil Roberts and Jeff Winnie and Terrell were all there.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. So when I got the group, I got a really good group. So I'm glad you're a part of it.
Thank you.
And I actually have, I'm pretty sure, I got a Nancy Anderson right over there on my wall. And I might have several in my collection, but it was a figurative piece from Mark's studio.
Oh, okay.
So
I remember Mark saying, "Oh, and World Gallery is down there." So my husband and I came down and checked it out, and it really was just at the very beginnings.
Yeah, well, I mean, technically, shout out to World Gallery. It was owned by Tomas Bergard, a different artist, and it wasn't really my baby or our kind of vibe quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
But it was my intro to this property, and also being rubbing up against another gallery owner and how they did things a little bit different than we do now.
Oh, okay. Then when did you?
Just a few short months later.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I was here less than a year before World Gallery kind of stepped aside, and Brett Douglas and I started Location 1980 formally as an LLC. Mm-hmm. Since you were there, have you always lived in California? Was this part of your art journey?
Yes, I grew up in San Francisco, right in the city, the Richmond district, right across from the park, not too far from the beach, and came down to LA and gonna date myself, but coming down in 1967, my parents moved down here, and that was the summer of love. So I was gonna miss a lot leaving San Francisco. But yes, I'm from a family of 10, and my dad helped build the San Francisco Bay Bridge, and in around 1967, he said. It turned out they said you're not going to have a job unless you move to Los Angeles.
Wow.
So we ended up moving to a little bedroom community, and I was just miserable. Because I was independent. I was on the buses. I was, walking all over the place. I mean, kids in those days go have fun, and, So then it was like bedroom community. My mom would have to drive us anywhere. And Whittier, it was Hacienda Heights, so Whittier had like nothing. It had the mall. No, the mall wasn't even there. Anyways. So my older sisters and brothers, they would just say, come up for the summer then when you're out of school. And then I'd be up in San Francisco for the summer.
When you went up there to visit, was that like kind of a spark for your art career? Did you do art then when you were younger? Or?
Well, I started at about 3, and I was doing like coloring books, and I just remember sitting on the kitchen floor coloring in a book, and my mom in the kitchen ironing and showing Mom, look what I did. I mean, I have that memory of trying to get validation at 3 years old.
Looking for the recognition.
Yeah. And then, so let's see. And at 10 or 8, she got me an oil painting kit, John Nagy, and I learned it myself. But she was always real good about doing that. And I took all the high school art classes. My high school art teacher told me, if you want to do art the rest of your life, don't be a high school art teacher, because he didn't feel it.
That's I guess that's strong advice. But then, ironically enough, did you end up being a high school teacher?
No. I went to junior college and it was called commercial art at the time. Well, first it was secretary science, because that's about what women could get, secretaries.
Like typing?
Yeah.
Shorthand, maybe?
Yeah, maybe I could work for an attorney or something. And so then I switched to commercial art and realized I'm not good at this. We're designing.
Is that like graphic design?
Yes. Yeah, lettering and designed this album cover and stuff like that. And I knew I was... So anyways, but I had fun, and I took lots of classes junior high. Then I switched to Cal State Fullerton, and I was a studio major. And then I realized in the 70s what they were not teaching you art. I mean, all of the professors had been having academic training, but then in that time it was they didn't appreciate that at that time. Everything was conceptual and your feeling and so. But I've always resented that, because I felt like I was robbed of a good education in art, because later, then after I graduated, I had to take all kinds of workshops and classes to figure out
the stuff you missed out on.
The basics. I mean, I did have color theory and things like that, and it wasn't completely. But then I switched that major to art history. So then I got kind of a dual art history studio. I figure if you can do art, you don't really need a studio major.
Sure.
And so, it was kind of like, at that time, it was, should I go to college? Shouldn't I? It wasn't even like college is career leading. Yeah, I'll go to college. And so I had to take all the basic classes, but then everything was art, and art history. And then I got out and I had no job.
Well, that's a good pausing point.
Yeah, we'll pause.
To no job.
And they don't even teach you
how to get a job.
And they need to do that today.
I was going to say, I think they still don't. From what I've heard.
Not only how to get a job, but how to start an art business or be competent, or your own art brand, your own art entity. That should be like the first, second, and third class you have to take. But it would be a good pausing point to have our second guest, Ruth Geller, catch us up in a similar fashion. You grew up in Long Island, am I wrong?
Yeah, I grew up in Long Island, and my education was totally different than Nancy's.
Yeah, well,
I
start us at the beginning.
Myself, but my whole family, they're all artists. My father was in construction. He would take the interiors from scratch and build within and outside of a building, and I would sit over him, and he was left-handed, unfortunately. It was tough. He would do blueprints. We didn't have the machines and everything like that, and I would watch him do the blueprint of the place he was working in. He would take me on Saturdays to his shop. He was a glazier, so he would do glass work. Everything was glass, cutting glass.
Was he? Oh, he's installing glass, not blowing glass.
No, not blowing glass. And so he had
Is that like storefront windows?
Storefronts, yes, that's what he did. And part of the job was that, and part was the interior. So I would go to shop with him on Saturday. My mother would throw me out because we're 4 in the family. And she was probably very happy that I went with him. And I loved going with him. We went to Brooklyn, and I would go in the shop, and he would have all these machines I would work on. He would do metal bending and glass cutting. I could never cut glass. I always wanted to cut glass. I was too small to be able to hold that wheelie thing over the glass and be able to cut it, even though he tried to teach me. And I would just build with the scraps. And actually, building with the scraps is basically what I do with my art.
So that's full circle then.
Full circle. But I didn't know at the time that was what you do. It's okay to do that. There are certain artists, Frank Stella builds the wood and frames it and puts it together, and he makes something interesting. And I would just take anything and put it together, and that would be my piece of art for the day. I didn't view it as art. I just spent the time with my father creating.
Did he encourage you at that point?
Not really, and nobody would let me go in his business. My father died when my parents died when I was young. So when he had this business, I had a brother, 4 years younger than me, and he wasn't able to go into the business. It would have been nice to continue that type of thing. I think I could have gone into his business because I had the mindset of a creative. I knew what to do watching him, but I didn't know the business aspect of it. My mother did the bookkeeping and handled the business type for it. So then I get married, and
Were you doing art in high school at all, or is that when you met
I did.
Harvey?
Actually, I worked in a printing shop.
And Gordon. Yeah.
I worked, because I didn't do art. My sister did art.
Okay.
I did.
I've seen her work. Yeah.
Productive. I'm very productive. Everything I did have to be productive. So I sewed. I wanted to be a clothing designer. But the children got in the way, and I had children in my 20s. Through my 20s, I designed their clothes, and I sewed their clothes, and I did that type of thing. And I didn't really paint then. I think in my 30s I started working with some artists that taught me how really to draw pastels. I did every medium that was allowed to me. I worked in a studio, and I got into the figure because the people... I did portraiture.
Was this still in Long Island, or had you moved to Manhattan?
York. No, I didn't move into Manhattan. I went to school. I went to the museums and took classes in the Metropolitan and one of the other schools down there.
That's cool.
Well, I took a course here and a course there, and I did want to do book designs. I really liked the idea of having something in my mind and being able to create that thought. But they didn't like my work. So it turned me off of doing that. My husband bought me a table, because his father was an artist, so he viewed it as I should have an art table and draw like that.
This is how you do it.
Yeah, this is how you do it. Well, that's not how I did it.
Well, that's such an interesting contrast how you were just saying, you like to have an idea and then be able to fabricate. Because just a few minutes before the tape, you're very kind of high level conceptually chatting about how you work now, and you're like, it's so not planned. I find the work finds itself, in the process of doing it.
That's true, but when you go to school, they tell you the book is about blah, 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 and you got to paint a picture that represents the book because you're doing a book cover. So that Parsons School of Design, just took a couple of courses, knew it wasn't for me. I tried different ways to figure out what was for me. I love hands-on thing. That's why I love sewing and doing things with my hands. I sculpted stone here in California. When I got to California...
When was it when you moved to California?
1986. I moved here to California. And I hadn't had any... I did work in a studio, as I said, Anna Klein's studio. I was very fortunate because all the artists there were artists. Professional artists. Working artists. So... I would go, I studied with a portrait artist, but then we got into the figure, and nobody taught me, and then I studied Magritte, I studied Gauguin, I studied Van Gogh. Everyone, I went through that whole thing of how I should work, to find who I am, what I want to do. I love color and very explosive kind of things, and I did the Fauve period, and it was great. I had a lot of fun, and I did do a lot of things, but I didn't do like anybody else was doing. They were all doing very normal figurative work, and my work was never like that. We had somebody sit, I remember one time, I felt bad because she brought her son, we were doing a portrait, and he was a redhead, and I did it like Van Gogh. You know how Van Gogh does his portraits. Well, that's how I was into Van Gogh's immediate
straight
reaction.
From the hip.
Yeah, reaction. I loved it. I mean, all that work. I really loved that work. But it wasn't realistic. I had people sit with me when I worked as a hairdresser back east. And I said, come to the house and I'll draw you. Well, I was studying Degas. So I made it Degas. And with all the different colors, but sort of like Van Gogh. And she took it, but I don't know if she was expecting that type of work, because it was very expressionistic and very impressionistic type of work. And I think with the Fauves and Kandinsky, and I studied every artist, art history, everything by myself. I didn't have to go to school. When I went to school, and the reason I went to school, I moved to California in 86. My neighbor was a sculptor, and she said, oh, you should go to Golden West. Well, I don't want to spend money. I have a feeling about that.
On art?
Not on art. I spend money on art, but I don't, on education. Because I feel you educate yourself.
Huh?
And you could read books and you could educate yourself. But I went because she said it was only $3 a credit. That was how long ago it was. $3 a credit. I could afford $3 a credit.
You had to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So I went for sculpture because she was sculpting, and
ceramics.
Said, no, then I was doing stone. I started with stone, and that was fun. And I only hand carved. Didn't use the pneumatic tools. This was coastline. First it was coastline. She took Regina Clark, Tim Clark's wife at the time,
Now, Ruth,
taught.
You're naming several of these local colleges, so you just kind of matriculated your way around the circuit.
Coastline, all of Coastline's colleges I went.
So it kept you going, kept you inspired, near other artists.
I studied with wonderful teachers. Ebert was the best teacher. He allowed me to just be myself and create, and I think he knew my work and he could see. And he said, you have to listen to my critiques. So I had to stand there. Not doing anything, which is very hard for me.
Well, it seems like knowing you personally and knowing your work and your aesthetic and being a fan of it, that you've always had your own style. I can relate, but you had to find the right vein. You've gone through many mediums and different techniques, but you've always had that style that kind of shows through. Nancy, did you find yourself in a similar situation where you found your style right away, or because you're very pragmatic and you're process oriented? I just think that I'm curious to see how you discovered your own similar voice.
Well, that is yet to be.
Oh wow! All right.
Yes, I think.
Tune in, audience.
I think it's happening soon.
That's great.
No, when I got out of college, and I went to UCI for a teaching credential. Ended up teaching in elementary school for 30 years and was able, so it was every subject, but I always liked art. Yeah, it wasn't just art. And when I would do the art with kids, it was like, oh, that was exhausting. So I think it would have been very hard to do, teach art. But you've
recently retired?
Yes, people say recently, and now it's 12 years already. Wow. Yeah, 12 years.
Hey, congratulations. Somebody who's unretired, congratulations.
Yes, I said, okay, let's see, what's the pension going to be? Okay, I can deal with that. I'm out of here. Can I? One more? Okay, so fairly early. But anyways, I was teaching, which was beginning teaching. It is a stressful job. It's a stressful job your whole life. But I was younger then, and I can't believe the energy I had when I go back and look at things. But it would be, teach and then go do errands, maybe play tennis, and then that night I'm going to go out to a, painting class down South County. So I hooked up with this wonderful portrait artist, Frank Tariello, and he was painting for senators. He was a big time portrait artist. And I looked at, when I went to his studio and I saw his portraits, they practically brought tears to my eyes, because even if it was an unattractive person, that he would just make, it would still look like him, but he would bring out something, and they were just beautiful. And since art history, I was always drawn to Manet, not Monet, Manet, all of the ones that did portraits and that had people of the time, Rembrandt. Anytime I got a chance to see him, I want to see him. So anyway, Frank taught in his studio about 5 people every week, and we did oil and pastel from life. And I would do an oil painting, of a portrait in one sitting. They didn't really have, backgrounds and stuff. Okay, so then pretty much, and then I started focusing on pastel. Well, not yet. Actually, I won some big awards with pastel. So I thought, oh, maybe pastel's my medium, because oil, there's just so many variables. So I did pastel for a long time, and acrylic. And then when I retired, we were on, so they know when I retired, 12 years ago. I had taken a mixed media class, and I was always drawn to collage and things like that. So,
which you've also won several awards for.
well, then when I did that, people were like, a best of show, and then another best of show, and then
Another one.
would you teach this workshop? And then it was like,
full of trophies.
would you come speak to this group? And we want you to demo. And it was like, I never thought I could even. I didn't like speaking in public, but I also never thought I could paint in public. And to have, in the last 12 years, become comfortable at speaking in front of 100 people and painting, I have to step back because I, still get nervous or with something like this, but what I would have never imagined. And some of those, I entered these in international shows and in the magazines. And so I got in 2 books. And so that was a big, yes, I'm published. And then I got in a magazine, and now I'm on a podcast.
That's great.
But,
from what I gather from both of you, and also knowing your styles and what you do now together, not exclusively, but you do work together, you both find success in multiple mediums. I'm very jealous because I found what I liked, and that's what I do. And I've done other things like build things, and I've found that it's art, or shape spaces, or shape somebody, I dare to say, cultures to a certain degree. But it's ambiguous. Whereas like you guys like the tactile, different. Like I want to try this, and the oil, pastel, charcoal. And I've seen you both. You kind of share that commonality.
I think we both get a little bored. Like when I say,
it's a good
now
point.
I know how
It's a
to
really
do
good
it,
point.
and I know how to do it
Exactly.
realistically. And why do I not do that?
They want a new challenge.
And it's almost a lot of people can
Exactly.
do that. Now I'm moving more towards the abstract, and people will say, "Oh, why don't you, friends and family? Oh, why don't you paint like you did before?"
Oh,
It's too easy. I mean,
It's
it's
too
easy. They don't
easy.
understand how.
That's
how-
like when
how
these rock
realism is
musicians come out
easy.
with new albums and people are like,
Yeah.
play the old stuff. It's like, dude, we already did.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
This
It's,
is,
it's like
this podcast has been a bit of an art lesson, not a retort, just an education for art fans and art patrons. A lot of times we found, especially I would say it, I got to say it, Americans, because I have had some conversations with the regular folk in Europe where they might be just a little more actually into the art, and they wouldn't have these ready-made responses so what we try to do is just kind of educate people. Like if you're going to talk to artists, like there's a couple things maybe to say to encourage them, and certain things to definitely not say.
not saying,
Well,
"Oh,
certain
let's
things
just
that they
like a
have heard,
photograph."
not 9, not 10, but
Yeah.
100,000 times.
Yeah.
Let me
Yes.
just say this one thing.
Jump on it, Ruth.
Okay. I used to tap dance. I took tap dancing lessons, and it ended at 7:00. Jesse's group, 1980 group, started at 7:00. So I would always leave a little earlier so I could be here to draw the figure as far as that goes. And it has really pushed me to really focus more on the figure because, like Nancy says, people expect you, first of all, to do a perfect portrait of somebody or a perfect landscape so they could understand what you're doing. But in Jesse's group, I love the people here because they're very expressionistic. They allow themselves to create.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing. It doesn't matter. I've discovered what medium I've used. My thing is to be able to create. Give me something anywhere, and I will create from that particular thing. And your group was always wonderful. I would come in and just chuckle and just do something, and I would feel great. And everybody was doing their own thing. Nobody looked like each piece was exactly the same. Whereas when I was back, you had to draw the head exactly the same way, the figure exactly. No, if you want to do just this part of the figure, it was okay.
And thanks for saying that, Ruth. To fill our audience in a little background, and
Sounds
we
good.
might as well do this now because that is our commonality here, being
Right.
at Location 1980. We're talking about an uninterrupted 15 years straight of uninstructed figure drawing workshops. So we have a nude live model that's posing anywhere from 1 minute to 3 hours, but mostly shorter poses. And because it's uninstructed, and I guess I'm the one leading it, we're open to all styles, and acrylic, oil, sketch, left, right-handed, digital, everything that's come out, we've seen it. But everybody, like, the vibe is kind of the same. So I've seen it happen time and time again where I've learned from both of you, or you learn from Taro or somebody.
Absolutely,
I'm going to try that.
was the beauty
and
of
because you're not getting a B or worried about passing a grade, or everybody's a different age, color, creed, time period. Some people are at the end of their career. Some people are just finding their stride. But it's something to be said about that popcorn environment where you're more likely to take a chance, and it's going to maybe sink in harder because of that environment. Nancy?
And also, it's just such a good camaraderie. And even if everybody that first comes, hey, what's your name? And welcome. And everybody's welcoming. And then you get to know people. And it's just a fun evening. And if you're working during the day, it's just so relaxing. And I got to tell you, because I went to another figure one, and I got there just a little late. And they were so rude. They were like, be quiet. Or they have their spot, or it was just like
formal,
so formal, or like they're trying to intimidate you. I won't name where it was, but there were been a couple times, and it's like, it's fun. And I was always experimenting. I was just learning watercolor and always experimenting, and really liked it.
Yeah, I
think that's what I liked about Nancy when she first came. She was experimenting with watercolor. I loved the work that she did. She was still looking to do the representational stuff, but I said, that's great. Don't touch it.
They're all like, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, I don't know.
I literally don't know.
But I still say the same thing about her work. I don't know how she does it, but she's very creative, and it's fun to watch.
It is fun to watch. I've had a lot of fun watching both of you work. And Ruth, you and I, and Nancy too, we've done also plein air outside of the studio and the figure. So some of our guests that have been on before, Jim Trollinger, you both know too, and have worked with. And we find that a lot of times we work well in the studio together, and it's going to be fun outside. And you're members of the H2O group. Shout out to H2O.
Yes.
I don't know who runs it, but you've been kind enough to invite me with you sometimes. It's a weekly meeting of plein air artists and sketch artists around Orange County.
Yes, it was started out as watercolor, and most of them do watercolor, H2O, and so, but...
So you guys still enjoy that? Yes,
and then when Ruth, I think I invited you, and you came, and I was working on, plein air, this kind of realism. And so I was studying on my own light and how, the warm and the cool, and trying to really get it right. And she's over here with the acrylics, and I thought, she's having too much fun. Why am I doing this? There's a million people that can paint like this and do a beautiful landscape.
Yeah.
So the next day, I had my acrylic, and one of that day, actually, you were there at the Back Bay, and I just did color on the different trees, and because Back Bay is green, and I'm putting a purple path down there. Yeah. That was one that got in a book. Or in the magazine, how do you do that? But so I think it's when you're first learning a media, or a medium, that's when you are more fearless, or you should try to be fearless, or you don't know what you're doing, so you're breaking. As you learn more of the rules, you're like, oh, I wouldn't have done that now, but that worked, that kind of thing.
You're not constrained by conventions. You're kind of thinking out of your own
intuition.
Brain. Yeah, your own intuition.
And I think that's why.
How would I accomplish something that looks like this? I'll grab this tool. And a ton of innovation happens that way.
So I think that's why we both like to start something new, and do that. But we got to get in the mixed media thing.
Yes, we have a mixed media group that we started. It's been a year.
It's been a little over a year.
What's it called formally? How would somebody listen to this? How do they look
Orange County Mixed Media Artists. OCMA, like the museum, except with an extra M. So OCMM. And we just started.
It's not a fight club. It's not OCMMA.
Oh yes, because I was looking up trying to find the initials. I said, well, can we have the same as the museum? No, until they tell us we can't.
The people who go to both of those, though, that's the crowd I want to know.
Yeah, because I think some of them maybe have gotten on the Instagram.
It's a once a month once a month at the gallery. You can mention the gallery.
Yes,
please do.
I show at the Orange County Fine Arts Showcase Gallery in Santa Ana. It's in the South Coast Village. And I've been teaching workshops there. I'm with a group of teachers. They invited me to teach, and I told them, they wanted like every week. And I said, hey, I'm retired. I am not teaching something every week. I want, if I could just come in and do a workshop, teach when I want to teach. And so every now and then I'll throw in a workshop on something different. And then Ruth and I were talking. I said, well, maybe we could do the mixed media group here, just pay for the classroom, but nobody has to pay anything else, just a few bucks to use the classroom. And
it's been a year?
So it's been a year and a half, and little by little, so I've got a whole list, email list, and I send it out and remind them.
It's open for everybody.
Yes.
Anyone who's really interested.
So if I want to come next week.
You just come.
Yes.
Tomorrow.
But anyways,
Friday?
After a year, I asked the gallery, I said, is it possible that we take this part of the gallery to do a mixed media show for our groups and celebrate a year of doing it? And they said, sure. They don't have to be long. They just have to pay the entry. And so we had our own show, and it was really nice. And you can come or not come because a lot of people have things going on and they can't always make it. But we usually get 10 there, and we have a blast. And most of it is people that don't want to take classes, but they want to work with other artists and have other art, like the figure drawing. And you bring what you're going to work on, and you show what you've been working on, and people go, oh, that's so cool.
We share
different techniques.
Different things that we're working with, and we say, okay, I'm putting everything on the table,
we have
the material, and if you want to use it, use it.
And you're saying there's no cost for this?
$5.
It's $5
right now.
So
right now, they may be changing.
They may change us. Don't say it out loud.
It's fine. But
I didn't exactly tell them that I'm not doing a class. They have it down as it's a mixed media.
Nancy's nice enough to be able to allow everybody only to chip in the $5 to make up what she has to pay for the space.
Well, I love the fact that you're willing to share the space and share that energy with people, and now it's working. And it takes sometimes a year.
I'm hosting it. Some think I'm still teaching, but I do end up.
They're kind of one and the same. I've found the same thing. It happened to us here when a lot of times people would like the camaraderie and what we have as far as a community figure drawing, but they would take it a step further. They'd be like, well, does anyone teach? And I'm like, well, some people do. There's actually several teachers in the room, but I don't think they want to teach now because they taught all day.
Right.
I think the best teacher is to get up and walk around and maybe ask a question while they're working or watch someone work. But
that's a good idea, Jesse. That's what they do.
Since then, we had several instructed figure drawing workshops that haven't quite caught on. So it's good to see you guys have that whole year behind you. Because I think it's something where once it is like formally teaching, unless that's what you really set out to do, it can be a bore for the teacher and also for the students. And they might not be looking to commit that much.
Right.
They want a little splash in a pan, get their fingers wet, and do something cool. And maybe it's just one night. I think that's why Pinot's Palette and all these art and wines are very successful, because people want it, but they don't want to come every week. Not for a year.
Yes.
Good luck, with herding the cats to that level.
The oldest gal that comes down from Anaheim, and she's in her 90s, and she makes art all the time, whatever, literally. She's making all these kind of books and constantly, this is how I made, how did you do that? I just put this together. And she had taught for years and years. And then she taught at the university, and she's just a powerhouse. And it's really inspiring, some of these women that are retired and what they're doing. And
well, I'm going to commit right now to the internet that both Eric and I and Jillian over there are going to come to your non-class workshop and hang out, make some stuff. And
good, because we'll always have materials there
and we can bring materials.
And we could do that here at your 1980. If you invite us, we could invite everybody to come here, and you could set up something.
We'd love to. We have plenty of space. I mean, we got that big room. It's perfect. It holds 70 people, and if nobody's in there doing anything, it's just a big empty room. And so
In case we
Have your people-
In case exactly.
Well, they're talking, as Segerstrom's talking about just tearing down all that area by South Coast.
Yeah.
They have for a
Plaza.
long time.
Yeah, now it's going to be 3 years from now. So
I will say,
5 minutes from my house.
If it is here, it's going to be more than $5.
Yeah.
But you could buy the Location 1980 membership, which we'll talk about in the future.
Oh, that's-
And we'll probably have pizza too. So.
Yeah, come
Get
in.
more for your more than 5.
And wine, and
Membership is a good idea.
and there's also rumors of a speakeasy whiskey hour that may or may not be true.
It's and if it was, you'd think that the two of us would know about it, but the investigation continues on to its possible existence.
So we've come all the way to the contemporary now in a really fast fashion. Is there a story that either of you like to tell where art really changed something for you? A very memorable piece. Ruth, I know you collect some of your sister's work. You have all of her work.
Yeah, I have a lot of her work.
Is there something where you hold on to a piece like dear and true because someone made it, or maybe you bought it at a swap meet, you never met the person, but you love this piece of artwork? Is there any kind of story
Well,
or
this
anything?
thing with my sister passed away, and I'm here and she's in New York, and we always said, I will send you a piece, you work on it, send it back to me, I'll work on it. I'll send it back to you, you work on it, send it back to me, and I'll work on it. But unfortunately, it never got there. So when she passed away, my niece sent me a lot of her work. She's got a lot of people have a lot of it. And so we had taken a class with a particular artist of the figure, and we were totally different. But it was pastel on big pieces of paper. I gave you some of those papers. And I took them because they meant something to me, that we shared that experience. So
Awesome.
I decided, and I was working in acrylics at that particular time, that I will put one up and I will see how I can add to her piece. She worked in pastel. And I worked on quite a lot of them and redesigned. Some people objected to this, I must say, but because my sister and I had this thing that we wanted to do this, I knew it was okay. I would never work on anyone's work unless we had a commitment to one another. And
A true collaborative.
a
piece.
true collaborator. Even though she wasn't here, I could only work on the pieces that we initially did in the classroom with this other artist, where we were just learning the figure. But as I said, totally different work than mine. And
So you
I
still
had a
have
lot
one?
of fun. I have a lot of them. And I had a show at the Arts Center in Huntington Beach, and I had maybe 7 or 8 of them up. And I'm telling you, they were 30 by 40. They were like your big pieces, you know what I mean? I don't work big anymore. I work small. Too many things to store. And I just felt that every time I looked at it, I felt I was a part of her, and it was a wonderful thing.
That's awesome.
Now, as far as buying artwork, I love your work. From the very
Thank-
beginning, Jesse,
I appreciate
I
it.
fell in love with your expressionistic style. Beautiful, beautiful work.
It's very humbling.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate
I have some of Nancy's work. She had some also color, I call them color field paintings that she had done one time. And another one that she gave me, which was an abstract, that she was in this abstract mode. I don't collect, but if I see something,
You do have a few pieces of art in your house, Ruth. I've been in your house. I've seen a couple
I
pieces.
must say my son-in-law wants to do it up on the ceiling. I have a lot of high
I like it
ceilings,
just the
and I
whole-
refuse to have the work up high because I'll
You
be
can't.
claustrophobic with work.
Well, it's very.
I'm like yours, up in the wall.
It's very nicely done, though, and thanks
Thank
for
you.
sharing that story about your sister.
Yeah.
And your collaborative work together. Nancy, do you have anything that?
Well, I was thinking when Ruth was talking, and I was thinking, well, a lot of the things I've done that I've had in shows and that won awards, it's like I have a really hard time letting paintings go, and I'm fortunate in that I don't have to commoditize my artwork, and so I had another job. I can always just do my artwork what I
For
want.
art.
So I do what I want, and there's always I think if you like something, there's always that audience that will like it too. Not everybody, but some people. And so, but my husband's always like, oh no, don't sell that. Don't sell that. Don't sell that. And it's
Shout out to
like,
Gordon.
really? Okay. And then he
That's
didn't
great.
want me to sell. I actually put my first photograph in a show. Oh, don't sell that. I like that. And wait a minute, I'm the photographer. And I sold it. I said, I'll print another one, which is what's nice about
Right.
photography, but it was a cool frame. But anyways, in 1989, when I was still doing oil portraits, I always, since we had a big family and it would be like the 10 kids, not always at the same, but 10 kids, mom and dad, and I always wanted to do this table scene because we were just always talking politics and arguing and all that. And I thought, how could I design where I could get all the kids or all the
Not like
adults?
Last
in
Supper
the-
style.
Right.
but a
So
little
I was
more
looking
organic.
at a book and Renoir's Luncheon at the Boating Party. I don't know if you know that
Yeah.
one. I started counting. 14 figures and 2 figures were turning back. So I, on a big canvas, probably about the size of that one, Jesse, I don't know. what
3
it's
foot by
like.
4 foot?
Yeah. I did a Renoir copy, but I had all my siblings pose
great.
in
That's
that.
awesome.
And so my parents had that in their house until they passed away. And so people come in and think it's a Renoir. And they're, no, that's my mom, that's my dad, that's me with the dog, my
That's
cat
so
instead of
cool.
the dog. And so we made prints and everybody's got it in their house.
that's
And
nice.
my sister in San Francisco works for the DeYoung Museum, or worked for it. And her friend came over and said, oh, I'm moving to be the director of the Phillips Museum in D.C., and that painting is there. And so he moved there, and he sent me all this stuff with everybody sends me the Renoir things.
Memes.
But anyways, Gordon and I did go to D.C., and we kind of forgot about where it was. Oh, let's go, Phillips, right? Let's go here. And I got to see it and say, okay, now, because you can't paint from a print. It's always going
and
to be
that's
dark.
a
Yeah.
big piece.
And it's a big piece, and I was pretty pleased with how it came out. So that's something that I see going down in the family, because it would be, although I didn't have any children, all of them had children, and their children had children. So
Excellent.
it'll go. I don't know who it'll go to, but it'll be in the family because it'll be all their parents.
It's a good way to
legendary heirloom, yeah.
Yeah, a good way to make a lasting impression. We've asked because we are going into our all-female women's artist show, Feminine Undertones, in a few days on June 29th here at Location 1980. We've asked several of the guests before you, was there a time or maybe the whole time working in art or the art scene where being a woman affected you, either helped or hurt, or do you see is there advice you could give to a younger artist, like maybe one of your nieces, or where like you could just, it's specific to art, if there is something where maybe you could give them a lesson,
being a woman
Yeah.
in the arts.
and you could give them a lesson or not, or I don't know, a word of advice to young female artists.
When I started, I did abstract nude photography. And in this little town, Long Beach, a city in New York. Well, I wanted to show my work. I was very proud of it. I did other things, other shows. There was a group there that you show your work, but I painted. But I really wanted to show my photography, and it was not ordinary. Like I say, it was abstract. As I say, it was photo projected images on the nude.
And you
I-
shot the original photos,
The
then projected
original
them,
photos.
then shot the scene.
Yes. And I projected it onto the nude figure, and I shot in the dark because you had the projector could only shoot in the dark. So it was strange. But I went to the library. Everybody shows their work in the library. Well, they gave me the show. My husband did photography at the time too. They gave me the show, and I had my work. They put it in a room on the second floor, and the door was locked. Because I guess children, whatever the reason being at that particular time, not because I was a woman or anything like that. I don't think I was affected because I was a woman. It was because it was nudes.
Okay.
And I've always had a problem showing my nudes. I maybe once or twice showed them at the art center. It was always very difficult. So I'm looking forward to this new show because I purposely did a series on I wouldn't say the female figure, but on the figure, and in the tradition of my photography, where I photo images onto the figure. So the figure isn't as important as the overlay of the material that I shot onto the, I can't say canvas. Well, it isn't a canvas, but it is painted on instead of photography, put on by the photography. And
when can I ask you, when that happened and they locked the door, what was your immediate response? Did they put a chip on your shoulder? A lot of artists, when they're young, like a graffiti artist, get arrested or kicked out of school or whatever. Sometimes a chip can be healthy. You can use it as motivation. Like, you know what?
Badly.
You can't lock me out.
No, it wasn't. It didn't have anything to do with me. I did something creatively. Other people should see this creative thing, because if they wanted to do it, they should know it was okay to do it.
Right.
Why shouldn't I be able to show it?
Sure.
You know, this was, with the women's angle and everything like that, I was always a women's libber. I mean, there's nothing I could do about it. I was brought up in that particular era, and that's the way I feel. And this work that I'm doing, Women in Peril, represents a lot of the issues that women are going through today. And I feel really bad, because from my generation, I'm 83, I think. From my generation, and the women in today, I don't think they learned. I feel bad, because they keep repeating and repeating. I don't know where they put themselves in today's. They're doing better. I must say they're doing much better. But I thought they would be way out there. I don't know why.
But now
they're not accepting themselves.
Regressing.
So how could other people accept them for whatever talents they have, whatever they do? I get angry, and then I express myself in my art, which you will see in some of my art is very
that's
strange.
great to hear that. So if you're listening and you're local and you want to come see,
and you're intrigued,
please come view Ruth's current body of work that will be here at the Feminine Undertones. And how about yourself, Nancy?
Well, when I was talking about the nudes, I had put nudes up. The very first show, I think you had or invited me to put things up, and it was from our group. And so I brought some of my larger pastels nudes, and other people didn't put in nudes. It didn't have to be nudes, but I did invite people that I worked with, and the one that showed up was an evangelical with his kids, you know, and it was like, you know, his wife was probably, what are you bringing me to? But I think you need to know what the venue is. You know, most of these, if their kids are going to be in there, and depending on the city, you know, they're not gonna take nudes. Library wouldn't, or you know, they'd have to be adults only. So fortunately, I don't do many nudes. But as far as the art scene, I don't believe I was ever in the art scene, ever attempted to get in the art scene. I think the art scene, like New York art scene, is, well, there's a lot. This could be a whole other probably podcast, you know, right?
We can't wait to have it.
What gallery are you going with? Right. Yeah, so I've got my own scene. Good. And I'm working what I want. I do what I want, and I think, you know, I think it will go on into the future, because the work is quality work. And some that where it was just practice work, I'll give it away to family or whoever wants it. But I really feel now I'm moving more into things that are important to me. I'm thinking about things that I've always been interested in my whole life, or even when I'm a kid. And I'm really proud of a painting that I just did called Refugees. And it was a large one. It took me a long time. I painted over figures. I did the whole thing. You know, I didn't get impatient, changed it. And it just won a first place. But it's not something where somebody's going to come by, oh, I want that in my house. You know, I mean, but it's nice, but I wanted it to significant. And I feel like it's speaking to today. But then again, I don't want to try to do political things, because, there's a lot going on, and I'm very up on all the politics, but I need to get away from it. And so with my art, I usually want to create beauty. But if there's something that's really speaking to me, And so I've been thinking a lot about time, because as you get to our age, you start thinking, where did that time go? And as we talk, we see where the time went, but you really have this feeling of thinking about time. And so I'm doing it, and I love astronomy and astronomy and geology. So I'm thinking about, geologic time and cosmological cosmic time, and then your own lifetime, and I'm finding I get in a lot of circles in my thing. So I'm exploring marks that I put, and what did those marks mean when I'm just working intuitively?
Symbols, you mean symbols?
Well, so I'm getting more into intuitive. So
just like individual strokes, you're saying.
Right.
Yes, that I see. I keep getting these circles, so that to me has something to do with time. And
that's great.
Anyway, so I'm really excited about where the work is going, and all I want with the work is to show it. Nobody has to buy it.
Excellent. I think it's something to be learned that you guys have in common, that you're both coming from a place where you're making what you want.
Right.
And that's really refreshing, because you're not handcuffed to having to make a sale or being a working artist. But it's also not stopping you sitting on your hands. You're making work you're not repeating stuff.
Well, even if you're selling your work and you have your market and people are buying that particular work, there's a side of you that you could create for your own personal being.
No.
I create for my own personal self. I don't feel I have to sell. If somebody wants it, that's fine. But the creativity that you do, the thing that you do, is for you.
Yeah, I believe Rick Rubin addressed that in his book, that you need to really make work for yourself. And if you do that and you're true to that, it's inevitable there'll be an audience.
Exactly. I feel that way too.
Well, that's a great approach. And go ahead, Nancy.
I want to just say something about you, because I remember celebrating your 30th birthday.
Well, no, it was my 40th. It wasn't my 30th.
No, your 30th.
My 30th birthday was in LA.
Well, let's see. It's about 20 years
Maybe
ago.
It was 35.
Or maybe you weren't celebrating it, but you had it. Or you were gone on your 30th. Well, I remember us doing something. But, but anyways, I've just been really, what's the word? You can't be proud for something you didn't do, really, but proud or in awe that you have stuck to your guns to not go work for somebody, and you want to be an artist, and you're going to work, and what you've done with this whole place, and it just every year, every 6 months, things are happening and getting bigger and bigger. I don't know, financially how you're doing, but financially you're doing enough to be able to do this and to do what you love, and that's really admirable, because some of us take the course, well, let's make sure we got, okay when we retire, or, and sometimes I think what would have been like if I had done art my whole time, but that wasn't really an option, because I didn't have money. I had loans and things like that, and I think now, since I've been able to do full time for 12 years and have Santa Ana School District pay for hopefully I'll live longer. I'm just turned 69 this year, and women can go till their 90s if they're healthy, or 100, still doing their collages. They're doing their so I feel like, and now I just got off of you and went back to myself. But there is that when the ones that take a different road. I mean, you're going to take one road. You can't take them all, and you can kind of change. But I do admire that you're able to do this, and you've made a great.
I have to add also what Nancy is saying, because I know you for so many years, since you really practically started this place. And I remember telling you, I have somebody in this field, and if you want to speak to her to do a gallery, how you should do a gallery, not knowing anything, who you were or anything
just
like that.
My way,
You and Brett created this place, and you've come so far, and it's beautiful. Really beautiful that you put all your energy in, as well as your art.
I appreciate it, and it speaks to a lot of you guys, because I definitely didn't do this by myself. And shout out to Brett Douglas and all the other artists that have contributed. I may be the spearhead, and it's my energy that keeps it going, but it takes all of us. Every little thing, you guys being a guest on the podcast, or contributing to the art shows, or coming to one workshop a year, all that adds up to making me want to do it again, or the next year, or what's the next phase. also, I'm pretty in touch and comfortable with the fact that it may not last forever. So I'm giving it my all when I can, how I can. I've always been like that. And since I've made $1 off artwork, I've considered myself retired. So my retirement fund is I can work with both hands and I can make a valuable piece today, no problem. And if I get to trade that for a meal and a couch, then that's what I'll do, and I've done before. So there's security in that gives me the liberty to then champion forward and attract like minds. So I would say thank you so much for saying that, and thanks for being a part of it, because it doesn't happen with us. And honestly, this podcast is where Scott, who you guys both know, he was the one that just demanded. He was like, we have to tell this story to more people. And he's like, it just can't be the people who come through the brick and mortar 1980 and get touched by this vibe.
That's great.
So that's what we're doing here now, is to let everybody kind of feel that, and also know that any big city or small town you're at, there's other local artists doing something similar or cool, and we need patronage, especially here in America, to kind of reach out and support your local artists. So with that, I'll say thanks, and thanks for a great episode.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
That was blast.
Oh, really nice. Thank you.
Our featured guests and first-time podcasters, Ruth Geller and Nancy Anderson. And for myself and my co-host, Eric Ringman, this is Jesse Fortune and Jill over there. We're at Location 1980, art podcast, one of Southern California's strongest artistic communities, and we'd like you guys to join us. So please give us a like or share and comment below and let us know what you think, and help us tell the story to your friends and like-minded people. So thanks.
And if you're nearby, come on down and be part of the story on Saturday the 29th.
Feminine Undertones, June 29th, 2024, Location 1980.
We're inviting you.
Cheers, guys. Come on by. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was fun.